I never thought a single mistake would tear apart everything I'd built, not just my relationship, but the trust, the peace, and the person I believed I was. It happened on a random weekday afternoon, the kind where everything seems normal on the surface, until it's not. That day, I was at my teacher's apartment. She had offered to help me catch up on some personal development assignments after class. At least, that was how it started. But sometimes, lines blur without warning, and when they do, consequences come crashing in like a storm you never saw coming. Let me backtrack a little. I'm a final-year college student, and the pressure had been building for months. Assignments, future plans, and a relationship that had quietly started to feel more like a routine than something alive. My girlfriend, Alina, had been with me for nearly 3 years. She's kind, loyal, and smarter than I'll ever be. But lately, things between us had been different. Not bad, just distant. I told myself it was normal. I told myself we'd get back to how we used to be once life slowed down. But that day changed everything. My teacher, Miss Reed, was known for being strict but fair. She was young, maybe only 10 years older than me, and way more relaxed outside of class. That afternoon, we were supposed to go over some writing drafts. I remember the room was quiet, and I could hear my own breathing. We talked, laughed a little, and then there was a moment, a pause that lasted longer than it should have. I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe it was both of us. It wasn't planned, it wasn't smart, and it definitely wasn't innocent. But it happened. Just as I was beginning to realize how far I'd crossed the line, I heard the front door open. I froze. Miss Reed's face turned pale. I didn't even have to turn around to know who it was. I heard the soft click of her heels, the sound of keys dropping on the counter, and then silence. That heavy, horrible silence that says everything without a single word. Alina had used the spare key I'd given her months ago. She thought she was surprising me. She had no idea the surprise would be hers. What she saw when she walked in. I'll never forget the look in her eyes. Shock, confusion, pain, like something in her just broke. My heart dropped. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. No excuse, no explanation, just guilt so thick I could barely breathe. She didn't say anything either. She just stared, and then turned around. That was the moment everything shifted. One decision. One careless, emotional moment. And now, I'm left wondering if I can ever fix what I destroyed, or if some lines, once crossed, can never be walked back. But that wasn't even the worst part. What happened after she left, that changed everything even more. After Alina walked out that day, everything around me felt frozen. Miss Reed stood there, still and speechless, not knowing what to say either. The door closing behind Alina echoed in my ears like a warning I couldn't ignore. I just kept staring at the floor, thinking, what did I just do? But there was no going back. The truth is, what led up to that moment wasn't as sudden as it might have seemed. Over the past few months, my relationship with Alina had slowly been fading in ways I didn't want to admit. We stopped having real conversations. She'd ask about my day, and I'd give short answers. I stopped making time for her, even though she was the one person who always stood by me. And still, she believed in me. That's what stings the most. She trusted me enough to show up that day, thinking maybe we could grab coffee or spend time together after my tutoring session. Instead, she walked into something she never should have had to see. And Miss Reed. I don't even know how we got there. At first, it was just long talks after class, late emails about assignments, and the occasional personal story that made her feel more like a friend than a teacher. I convinced myself it was harmless. But somewhere along the way, the connection turned into something more. She listened to me when I felt like no one else did. She understood the pressure I was under. That attention felt good, addictive, even. But it was never supposed to cross that line. That night, I didn't hear from Alina. I tried calling her. Texted. No response. I went to her apartment, but her roommate told me she wasn't home. It was like she'd vanished, and part of me didn't blame her. Still, there was this unease I couldn't shake. Not just guilt. Something else. Like I hadn't seen the full impact of what had just happened. And I hadn't. Because what I didn't know then was that someone else knew about that day. Someone I didn't expect. Someone who had seen more than they were supposed to. And while I was panicking about losing Alina, another wave of consequences was already making its way toward me. Everything was about to get worse. Much worse. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls, none from Alina. But one number stood out. It was Ethan, one of my closest friends since freshman year. I hesitated before calling back, not knowing if he knew anything, but something told me this wasn't just a casual check-in. When he answered, his voice was low, almost cold. "We need to talk," he said. "In person." We met at the park near campus, the same one where Alina and I had spent countless evenings. Ethan was already there, sitting on a bench, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up when I sat down. Then, without warning, he asked, "Why didn't you just tell her the truth before it got this far?" My stomach sank. "You know?" He nodded slowly and then turned the screen toward me. A photo. Blurry, but clear enough to recognize the scene, me and Miss Reed, way too close, inside her apartment. My heart dropped. Someone had taken a picture. My head started spinning. Ethan explained that someone from our class, a guy named Leo, had followed me that day out of suspicion. He always thought Miss Reed played favorites and apparently had been watching her for weeks. He snapped the picture through her apartment window, then sent it around to a few people, Ethan included. No one else had shared it yet, but it was only a matter of time. The story was already spreading. Now, I wasn't just dealing with Alina's heartbreak. There was more. My reputation, my future, even Miss Reed's job, it was all hanging by a thread. I started panicking. If the photo got to the wrong hands, things could explode publicly. Miss Reed could lose her career. And me? I could get expelled. Or worse, dragged through something I couldn't undo. What made it more twisted was Ethan's confession. He had feelings for Alina, had for a while. He never acted on them, but now he saw this as a reason to step in. I didn't know whether to feel betrayed or just broken. Everyone was turning into someone I didn't recognize, including myself. While I tried to figure out how to contain the fallout, I had no idea Alina had already made a move of her own, one that would turn everything I was trying to hide into a much bigger storm. And by the time I found out, it was already too late. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was Alina's face from that day, her shock, the pain. My chest felt tight just thinking about it. I knew I had messed up badly, but now things were spinning out of control. The photo was still out there, Leo was unpredictable, and Ethan, he wasn't picking sides anymore. He'd made it clear he was done covering for me. On the third day after everything happened, I got a message from an unknown number. No name, just a screenshot. It was an email. Sent to the university board. The subject line read, "Inappropriate conduct between faculty and student." Attached was the same photo Leo had taken. My blood ran cold. The timestamp on the email showed it had been sent earlier that morning. Someone had gone through with it. I rushed over to Miss Reed's office, but it was locked. No lights. I tried calling her, no answer. She didn't even show up for class. Something was seriously wrong. I sat in the empty hallway, my mind racing. If the board acted fast, she could be suspended or worse, investigated. I was panicking not just for her, but for myself. If word got out, I'd lose everything, my scholarship, my degree, my respect. Then, a knock on my apartment door snapped me out of it. It was Alina's roommate, Zara. She looked nervous, holding an envelope. She asked me to give this to you, she said, then walked away before I could ask anything. Inside the envelope was a letter in Alina's handwriting. It wasn't angry. It was calm, too calm. She wrote that she had seen everything she needed to see, and that she was done pretending things could go back to the way they were. But what hit hardest was the last line, "You didn't just lose me, you gave up the version of yourself I believed in." But that wasn't it. The twist came at the bottom of the letter, where she hinted that she had also seen the photo, and that she wasn't the one who sent it to the board. That meant someone else had. Someone who wanted everything to fall apart. And suddenly, the circle of trust around me didn't just feel broken, it felt dangerous. Everything I'd been hiding, everything I thought I still had time to fix, was now fully exposed. And I had no idea who was going to strike next. I sat there with Alina's letter in my hand, trying to breathe, trying to think. If she wasn't the one who sent that email, then who did? Leo had the photo, sure, but he didn't gain much from exposing it. If anything, he liked to play the game in the background, stirring things up without getting directly involved. Ethan? He was angry, but I didn't think he'd go that far. Or maybe I was wrong about everyone. The lines between loyalty and revenge were starting to blur. Then my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, it was a video. My stomach flipped before I even opened it. I tapped the screen with shaky hands, and there it was, this grainy footage, clearly from a hidden camera. The same apartment. Same day. Only this time, it captured everything. The video angle was different, like it had been filmed from inside the apartment, or somewhere close by. Whoever recorded it hadn't just been in the area, they had set this up. I felt cold all over. Someone had planned this. This wasn't just about an affair or a bad decision anymore. It was something bigger. Someone wanted to destroy Miss Reed. And they were using me to do it. That night, I finally got a call back from Miss Reed. Her voice was trembling. She told me she'd been placed on leave, pending a full investigation. The school had received not only the photo, but also that video. She hadn't even known it existed until she was shown clips during a disciplinary meeting. Her eyes were full of fear when she said it. "They're calling it misconduct, predatory behavior." I could hear the panic in her voice. "They're saying I manipulated you." I knew what this meant. They were flipping the story completely. The footage made it look like she had taken advantage of her position. Like I was some helpless student pulled into something I didn't want. But that wasn't how it happened, and we both knew it. Still, proving that would be nearly impossible. And then she said something that hit me like a brick. She thought the camera had been planted before that day. By someone she knew. The deeper I went, the worse it got. It wasn't just a scandal, it was sabotage. Miss Red believed someone inside the department wanted her gone. And I, without even knowing it, had been the perfect bait. Now I wasn't just caught in a lie. I was caught in a trap. And someone, maybe more than one person, had been pulling the strings from the start. As I hung up the phone, my mind raced through every face I'd seen in the hallway, every classmate, every moment I'd dismissed as unimportant. There were too many people with too much to gain. And I was about to find out just how far someone would go to ruin a life, or two. The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep running from the mess. I walked straight into the dean's office without an appointment. My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed steady. I told them everything, my relationship with Miss Reed, what really happened that day, how the photo and video were taken without our knowledge. I explained how it wasn't one-sided, that it wasn't predatory. I didn't try to make excuses. I just told the truth, even if it hurt. They didn't say much. Just nodded and took notes. I knew it wasn't over. An investigation was still going to happen. But I needed them to hear my side before it was too late. After that, I went to confront the only person who had both motive and access as Leo. I found him in the library, like always, headphones in, acting like nothing had happened. I walked straight up to him and said, "You planted that camera, didn't you?" He didn't even blink. He took off his headphones, looked me right in the eye, and said, "You think you're smart, huh?" I expected him to deny it. Instead, he leaned back and said something I'll never forget. "She was supposed to give me the internship spot. Not you." She said I wasn't ready. But then I saw how she looked at you, how she treated you different. So yeah. I made sure everyone else saw it too. He didn't regret it. Not even for a second. He knew the camera angle, the timing, everything would make it look like Miss Reed had abused her power. He had even posed as a concerned student when submitting the footage to the board. That way, it looked like he was trying to protect me. It was cold, calculated, and it worked, almost. What he didn't know was that I had already forwarded a copy of his confession, recorded on my phone, to the dean before I walked in. I wasn't taking any more chances. The fallout was fast. The school launched a deeper inquiry. Miss Reed was temporarily reinstated, pending final review, and Leo? He was suspended and later expelled for privacy violations and misconduct. The video, once examined closely, had inconsistencies that showed it was edited, enough to prove intent to harm. I thought that was the end of it. I'd done the right thing, tried to clean up the wreckage. But the final twist came later, when I received a message from a burner email address. It said, "Leo wasn't the only one watching. You were never just a student in this story. And it's not over." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The truth had come out, but now a new shadow was forming. One I didn't see coming. And deep down, I knew, this story wasn't done with me yet. For days after that final message, I kept checking over my shoulder, wondering if someone else was waiting to take Leo's place. But nothing happened. Weeks passed. The investigation wrapped up, and the university released a quiet statement clearing Miss Reed of any wrongdoing, though she decided not to return to teaching. She said the trust had been shattered too deeply, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. As for me, I didn't get expelled. The board gave me a warning, and I lost my scholarship, but I was allowed to continue under academic probation. It wasn't fair to everyone involved, but it was a consequence I had to live with. My name had been whispered in hallways long enough that even people who didn't know me thought they did. Reputation is fragile, it breaks quickly and rebuilds slowly, if ever. Alina never came back into my life. I saw her once on campus months later, walking with someone else. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and just looked past me. That was the hardest part, not the fallout, not the scandal, but losing her in a way that felt final. She had believed in the best version of me, and I destroyed that. No apology could fix it. Sometimes, when trust is gone, there's no rewinding. Ethan and I never fully repaired things either. We exchanged a few texts, had one awkward conversation in passing, but the closeness we once had didn't return. I guess some lines, once crossed, can't be redrawn. But I did change. That experience forced me to look at myself differently, not as a victim, not as someone caught in a mess, but someone who made real choices with real consequences. What started as a moment of selfishness spiraled into something much darker. And while I couldn't undo it, I could at least own it. Looking back, I realize infidelity isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it starts in silence, in the spaces where honesty should live. And the truth always finds a way out, no matter how well we think we've hidden it. So if there's one thing this whole twisted story taught me, it's this: trust is everything. Once it's broken, even the truth might not be enough to bring it back. And sometimes, the worst damage isn't what others do to us, it's what we do to ourselves. 49.